Hi there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about patterning. And first, I'm just going to grab my highlighter. So, patterning is a word that you probably remember from last year because you talked about patterns in whatever grade you were in last year. Now, this is just the introduction. So, this is to kind of get you thinking about patterns. We're not going to do a whole lot of work on it. We're just going to start thinking about what patterns are. Over here, we see some key words that we're going to talk about in this unit. We're going to talk about growing patterns. And when you hear words like that, you can probably even tell a little bit about what they are, even if you didn't do it last year, or maybe you just don't remember. If it's a growing pattern, it's probably a pattern that's growing. So you already know something about this, and we haven't even started the unit yet. Increasing patterns, if you know what increasing means, that also means it's getting bigger. So it probably means a pattern that's getting bigger in some way. A pattern rule is something that you probably did hear last year. And you know that rules are just ways of knowing how you do something. So when we're talking about a pattern rule, we're probably talking about how the pattern works. Shrinking patterns and decreasing patterns, shrinking and decreasing means getting smaller. So those probably have to do with a pattern that's getting smaller as it goes along. So even though we just started thinking about patterning, you already know a whole lot about it. Let's go down to the bottom here. Now I'm going to read over this, and then every now and then I'll say, you should stop the video, pause it, and then you can kind of think about it for a couple of minutes. Here it says, children are wearing patterns, singing patterns, and dancing patterns. They're even clapping, tapping, and snapping patterns. And here's our first question. What patterns do you see in the picture? Now I'm going to get you started on this one. If I take a look at, just going to grab a marker here. If I take a look at this boy's sleeve, I see that there's a pattern. It goes green, light blue, dark blue, light blue, purple, light blue. And then it starts again at green. So I'm just going to use this math word. This part that repeats over and over again is called the core of the pattern. But we'll get into more of that later on in different lessons. So yeah, I see a pattern in this boy's clothing. And if you take a look at other pieces of clothing here, there's lots of patterns. And there's patterns on the instruments. This is the part where I'm going to ask you to pause the video, and that way you can spend a little bit of time looking around the picture and seeing what patterns you see. And when you're done, start the video again. I'm going to grab my highlighter again here. The next question is, think about making a dancing pattern. What might it be? That's a good question. Now, when we look at this picture, the kids aren't moving because it's a picture. So it's like a snapshot of what they were doing at that moment. I'm going to show you a dancing pattern. It's a little tricky because you can't see my feet, but it could be as simple as this. So I'm going to go 2 steps and then 1 big step back. 2 steps and then 1 big step back. I just made up a dancing pattern. I want you to make a dancing pattern. It can be really simple like mine, or it can be really complicated. That's up to you. Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause the video again. And when you've done your dancing pattern, you might even want to show somebody at your house. And then when you're done, just start the video again. This last one says, think about making a sound pattern. How would it sound? Good question. There's a few ways to do this. I could do a clap and then a rub and then a snap. Clap, rub, snap. Clap, rub, snap. I just made up a sound pattern. It could be, if you can whistle, you can make a whistling pattern. So what's my sound pattern? It's one whistle and then two whistles, and then I do it over again. Again, I want you to pause the video and you make up your own sound pattern. And if you want, you can let somebody in your house listen to it, see if they can hear the pattern. Or if you want, you can just do it for yourself. And then when you're done with your sound pattern, start up the video again. So that's it for our introduction to patterning. In the future, so in future lessons, we're going to hear a lot more of these key words. But for today, I think we did a great job starting to think about patterning and getting into the unit. Over the next few days, as we get into the unit, what I want you to do is, as you walk through your house or walk through your community, start looking and listening for patterns. You'll see lots of them. There's patterns everywhere. And that'll help you get into the thinking part of this unit on patterning.